most afraid of? We're going to get into and underneath all of those fears today on Monday Morning Moxie.
This is Monday Morning Moxie from the one and only Coach Jenny. Each week, Coach Jenny shares a new challenge designed to help you become more productive, more focused, more decisive, and more confident in every aspect of your life. Not next month, not next year, this week, and every week after that, so you can actually accomplish what matters most to you.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to my web show, Monday Morning Moxie. This is episode 3 already, which is kind of mind-boggling. My name is Jenny Mustafa Julak, but everybody calls me Coach Jenny, and I'm so excited that you're here. Monday Morning Moxie is your weekly kick in the pants, a way to kind of get the week started, get your gears grooving, whatever the heck that idiom is, and make sure that you're moving towards the things that you really want to make happen, those things that matter most to you. So I'm going to do a little coaching, a little teaching. I'm going to take a few questions from the audience, and I'm, of course, going to give you your weekly experiment. The idea behind these experiments is it's 7 days to play with a new idea or to play with a new habit or to try something on that maybe you haven't thought of before. And just try it for 7 whopping days. And we'll see whether or not that experiment might make a modicum of difference or if it might just change your life. So let's get into the episode, shall we? Last week, your challenge on Monday Morning Moxie was to stop puddle jumping. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and click on the link and learn all about puddle jumping. It's in the show notes. It's up here somewhere. Go ahead and click on that and learn all about puddle jumping. But the experiment, for those of you who are playing at home, was to give yourself credit and to just raise your awareness to how many credit-worthy things that you're doing that do not need to be puddle jumped. Again, puddle jumping is when you are trivializing all of your accomplishments and all of your experiences and all of the things that you're doing, all the decisions you're making. When you trivialize that and don't even recognize the importance of those things, you're leaving a lot of confidence on the table. Confidence you've already earned that you deserve to run with. So I'm curious, how did that experiment go? For those of you who tried it on, if you would leave me a comment and let me know how giving yourself credit is going, if you're feeling like, hey, this is an experiment I want to continue, or if you have any questions for me, leave me a comment below or shoot me a DM at Coach Jenny over on Twitter or Instagram. This week, I want to get into fears, and I want to share with you one of my most classic Coach Jenny coaching exercises ever. This one even comes with a freaking worksheet, people. But before we get into it, let me start by saying some of the most popular coachy nonsense ever uttered. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Just fake it till you make it. Change your thoughts, change your life. Kumbaya freaking yeah. That last one I've heard in so many different iterations, it makes me want to vomit. I'm personally so tired of these trite, unhelpful, and often downright gaslighting things that a lot of people in the coaching and productivity space say all the freaking time. And I think we say it because it sounds nice, it sounds positive, but it's actually kind of toxic positivity for anybody who's doing something that matters. If you're doing something that matters or working towards doing more of the things that really matter to you, you're probably experiencing some fear. Experiencing fear does not mean that there's something wrong with you. In fact, it means that you're human. And it means that you're off the couch trying to make something happen. And that's important. But experiencing fear is seen as this, I don't know, plague that you're supposed to deal with on your own and just pretend it's not there. Well, here's what I've learned over my 16 plus years of doing this business. That doesn't work. You deserve a way to experience your fears, but not let them take you over, not let it debilitate you, not let it stop you in your tracks before you start something. The fact that you're experiencing fear to me is a very positive sign. It means that something is happening or you're about to do something or fixing to do something that is really important. And it's so important that you need tools to deal with all those fears that are bubbling up. So I am never going to say to you, just change your mindset. Poof, boom, you're done. Because that doesn't help anybody and makes you feel even worse about yourself. Instead of just having tools that help you feel your feelings and deal with all of the feelings of fear, I want to also augment that with thinking through and analyzing your fear from a lot of different angles so that you can get a little more information from that fear and figure out what you're going to do next. So I'm going to walk you through my 7-step process for tackling your fears. And 7 steps sounds like a lot, but I promise you by the end of this video, you will have these 7 steps memorized. It's that simple, but Simple doesn't always mean easy. So it takes a little time, a little practice. I'm going to walk you through it, give you an example or two so that you can kind of see it in action. And then you guessed it, this is going to be your experiment for the week ahead. So let's get into tackle your fears. First, let me tell you what the 7 steps are in a general sense, and then we'll bring it home and make it make more sense with a legit example. Sound good? Step number 1 is to name your fear. Whatever you're feeling, maybe it's the fear of the unknown, or the fear of failure, or the fear of success, or what could come with success. Maybe you're afraid of embarrassment, or you're afraid that you just don't know enough, or you're afraid of what you don't know that you don't know, which is a different level of the unknown. Maybe you're afraid that this idea isn't big enough, or that this idea has been done before. Maybe you're afraid you just don't have what it takes, or you're afraid about what so-and-so is going to say about you, even attempting this thing. Whatever it is, I just want you to get really, really clear about what you're afraid of in this moment. Try not to overthink it too much and just say it. I think I'm afraid of this. This is what I'm feeling afraid of. And if it's more than one thing, that's totally okay. Write down more than one thing, but we'll tackle these fears one by one. So that's step number 1, is simply name the fear. Step number 2 is to tell me, in reality, what is the worst case scenario if everything goes as bad as that fear can imagine? Now, Hilda, as I talk about often, the inner critic, that voice in your head who tells you you suck, the girl that allegedly looks like the bitch I hated in high school, allegedly. Hilda wants to take you to the worst case scenario. So for many of you, you may have already spent a lot of time hanging out in the worst case scenario, but I want to bring that into reality. What is the worst possible scenario you can imagine if your fear comes true? Everything goes to crap. What is the worst case scenario? And you want to get very honest about this, because usually, like, if your fear is something like, I'm afraid that I might be embarrassed, but your worst case scenario that Hilda's spinning up is now you're living under a bridge, that might be a leap, right? So we want to make sure that we're saying, here's the worst case scenario if it really goes bad in reality. That's step number 2. Now, step number 3 is to flip that coin over. What I want you to do is say, okay, you know what? Here's the best case scenario. Also in reality, not the best case scenario in the law of attraction-y sort of way of like, well, then I will never have to work again and I'll have unlimited wealth and love and whatever the heck that is. I want to know, what is the best case scenario if everything goes your way and that fear proves unworthy of you? If you beat that fear and suddenly everything goes your way, what would that look like? Again, in reality. Most of us, again, look at step number 2 because Hilda brings it up. But step number 3 usually doesn't get any airtime at all. So I would just ask that it gets equal airtime, right? So let's look at the worst case scenario and best case scenario. So the best case scenario is step number 3. Now for steps 4, 5, and 6, we're going to get into some data points, if you will. And step number 4 is about what you have complete control over in this situation. So when you're thinking about this thing that you're fearing, this fear that you're feeling, where in this situation do you yourself have complete control? Now we know you don't have complete control over anything else, thus having a step 5 and 6. I'll get to that in a minute. But you do have a lot of control in most situations. And it can be incredibly helpful to, again, thinking through this fear, not just feeling it, list out all the different ways that you actually have control over the situation, control over the outcome. When we get to the examples, you'll start to see how this flows together. So we'll put a pin in that right now. But for right now, just know there is a section where you're going to write down, here's where I personally have complete control over the situation. Now in step number 5, I'm going to ask you, where do you not have complete control, but you have influence over the outcome? Often we think about where we have complete control and no control, but there's this massive gray area in there where you have a lot of influence over the outcome. That doesn't mean you can absolutely manipulate it to go the way you want it to, but that sure doesn't mean you don't have a voice or a say in the matter. There's places where you could persuade or steer things in your direction, in your favor, and that's where you have influence. So again, in the examples, you'll start to see, okay, I don't have control over this necessarily, but I have some influence I could exercise. I have some agency here that I could use. And here are the different ways I could influence a situation. That is step number 5. Now, step number 6 is equally important to the other two steps, in my opinion, which is where do you have no control and no influence whatsoever. Now, this is where most coaches kill me because they're out there saying, oh, just change your thoughts and you have complete control over your thoughts and blah, blah, blah. I don't know about them, but you and I, we live here on planet Earth, and there are things that we have absolutely no control and absolutely no influence over. That's not a bad thing. That's not a good thing. It's just a thing. It's completely neutral. However, it is important information. For some reason, a lot of us just kind of put our blinders on and think only about where we can control and influence. Very important places to consider, and I think equally important, is to just recognize here are some things that I actually can't move the needle on at all. So we're going to list out all the ways you have no control and no influence. Now, there's often a lot of my clients will put something down there that they actually have a little bit of influence over. So in the influence, back over on step 5, it might not be I have a huge amount of influence, but you might have a little bit of influence that doesn't quite put it into the 6th category of none. So again, steps 4, 5, and 6 are looking at this thing that you want to do that you're feeling fear about from these 3 different angles. Where do you have complete control? Step number 4, where do you have influence, not complete control, but influence that you could exercise? Step number 5. And then finally, where do you have no control, no influence? There's nothing you can do about it. Step number 6. Now, once you've looked at all of those different data points, you've gotten really clear. Here's what I'm afraid of. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, control, influence, neither. Now you have enough information to have a gut check and ask yourself a very important question. Now that you've analyzed your fear, what are you going to do about it? This is where you're going to be able to say, well, based on all of this information, now I can think more clearly. I'm not just sitting in this big, scary feeling, and I'm not just imagining how everything could go really, really bad, not even remotely in the realm of reality. Now that you've analyzed the fear and looked at it in these 5 different ways, you have a lot of information, a lot of data, if you will. Because again, we're not just feeling the fear, we're actually thinking through the fear as well. And so now that you have all of this data, you have enough information, as well as adding in your emotions again and following your gut to say, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do about that. As promised, this makes a lot more sense when you have a few examples, as well as you get to internalize it and eventually meet the promise I had of memorizing this thing. So if you will, let me share with you a couple of examples of this worksheet in action. Step number 1, name your fear. One of my clients shared with me, I have an idea for a new service and I want to offer it in my business. I'm really excited about it. But my biggest fear is that everyone is going to think this new service is a terrible idea and I will feel judged. So many of you are probably nodding along going, I get it. I have this big, exciting idea and I'm terrified that everybody's going to think it's a horrible idea and they're going to judge me for even thinking about it. So you can kind of feel that feeling for my client. I'm going to take that fear and look at it 5 different ways. First, what is the worst case scenario based in reality of how bad this could go if that fear comes true? Worst case in reality, she said, I can imagine that nobody signs up and I would have to try to promote it differently or just drop the idea and try something else. Okay, that's a worst case scenario. That wouldn't be pleasant, but it's not the end of the world either. See, one of the things that I love about this experience is as you start analyzing your fear, we're on step 2 and her fear is starting to shrink a little bit because we're looking and saying, maybe that's not as scary as I thought it was after all, because the worst case scenario is I have to get creative on selling it more and nobody shows up. That would suck, but I can handle it. Okay, moving on. So step number 3, I asked her, what's the best case scenario? Again, in reality, if everything goes your way. She said, tons of people will sign up for my new service and I'll get lots of support from my peers to promote it. So that would tell me everybody thinks it's a great idea and there's a ton of interest. I love this answer, right? Notice that it's still couched within reality of the fact that that could absolutely happen. People would sign up for it. Her peers would love it. She would get lots of support for it. She'd be making some money. There'd be proof of a ton of interest and she could build on that. That's the best case scenario she had. It's not, I will be able to buy that Maserati by Tuesday. The best case scenario also got her really excited. When I shared this with her, you could see her face kind of lighting up of like, that's the reason I even want to think about this idea in the first place, and lets you reconnect and feel more soul stitched to this idea of yours that you're excited about. Again, it's scary. It's also exciting, which is kind of my favorite combination of emotions ever. Okay, so now we're going to take that and go into steps 4, 5, and 6, where you're looking at the locus of control. Where do you have control? Where do you have influence? Not complete control, but influence. And where do you have neither? So step number 4, where do you have complete control in this scenario? My client said, the way I set up the service, the way I promote it, who I invite, how I present the information, how often I tell people about it, how I craft the message, etc., etc., etc. You see where this is going, right? There are a ton of things that she can do that she has complete control over. She gets to make every one of those decisions. She gets to do it at her pace, in her way, in her voice. She gets to ask for help if she needs to. She has complete control over all of those actions. Can you tell that as we're going through this again, you can see that fear shrinking more and more, that fear that this would be a terrible idea and I'll feel judged. It's starting to shrink more and more. Might not completely go away, but then again, it might, but we're going to keep going. So that's where she has complete control. But where does she have influence? Not complete control, but some influence over the outcome of hopefully getting to that best case scenario where everybody thinks it's a great idea. And she's got lots of people signing up for this new service and praising its results. So where in this scenario does she have influence? Maybe not complete control, but influence over moving towards this service doing really, really well. She says, I have influence on how I persuade people to sign up and whether or not it reaches a wide audience. Now, if we spent more time here, we would be able to uncover many more ways that she would have influence over the outcome. But just those two ways in and of themselves, combined with all the areas that she has control over, is really starting to empower this client and make her feel like, oh my gosh, look at all of the different ways I can make a difference and slide the needle over to that best case scenario, that best possible outcome. Because between the worst case and the best case scenario, you're probably going to land somewhere in the middle. But we want to be kind of over here. Am I right? And by her just deciding I'm going to exercise my persuasion on getting people to sign up and make sure I'm doing my part to reach the widest possible audience. Even though she doesn't have complete control over that, she has a lot of power there and she's going to make sure she uses it. Now, in the last bucket here, where does she have no control and no influence? That's also an important piece of information. She thought about it for a moment, and here's what she said. I have zero control or influence on what other people are selling in my market, how much money my customers have, or what else is happening in their lives. I think that's really, really smart, right? Now, there's probably a few other areas, but just pinpointing those three was really powerful for her because she was able to say, you know what? I have no influence and no control over what my competitors are doing. I have no influence and no control over the pocketbook of the people that are looking at my services. And I also have no control or influence over what else is happening in their lives. I have no control or influence over world events and what's happening there either. Again, this flies in the face of a lot of what those coachy people are saying out there is just change your mindset and you get everything you want. It's not that simple. We all live in this reality. So recognizing that reality is really profound because it lets you let go of trying to control those things or worrying about those things. It does you no good to worry about whether or not somebody has the money. They have it or they don't, and it's not up to you or your responsibility. It doesn't help you to worry about what's going on in other people's lives and whether or not you have the right timing going on because you can't control or influence that. And it's not your role and it wouldn't be appropriate. So recognizing that lets you let go of some of that and feel much, much lighter. And more importantly, it lets you focus on the last two categories of where you have control and influence, because that's where you can put your time and energy. So finally, what I wanted to know from my client is step number 7, which is once you've analyzed your fear, what are you going to do about it? And here, what I'm asking for is that very next obvious step, that thing that would feel like, you know what? This is saying it's on. This is what I'm going to choose to do with all of that information. Now, your choice might be to say, you know what, based on this, I'm too afraid of it. It's not worth doing. That is certainly not the case in this example. In this example, she said, I'm going to ask someone I trust for feedback on my new idea so I can stop overthinking this idea for the new service. That felt like the exact next step she needed to take. And she felt like she had given herself permission to share this idea with somebody that she trusted, ask for that feedback, upgrade the idea a little bit. And I happen to know these services have been out on the market for a long time now, and she's doing very, very well. By taking the time to go through these 7 steps, my client was able to very quickly realize, you know what? I don't want to sit and stew in the fear. I want to think through it so I can get on with it. I can make a decision already. Are we doing this or are we not? Are we in or are we out? Is this something that is worthy of my time and energy? Is it worth the effort? Is it worth an experiment? By going through this process a couple of times, you start to internalize these questions. It becomes almost a really quick process for saying, wait, I'm feeling scared now. Let me think through this for a hot second. And with some practice, you can rattle it off really quickly. You won't even need the freaking worksheet. You'll quickly be able to say, okay, wait. What am I afraid of? What's the worst case scenario? How bad could this be? What about the best case scenario? What's the other side? Okay, that's pretty cool. Where do I have control? Where do I have influence? Where do I have neither? And ultimately, what am I going to do about it? So you can take any of your fears and run it through this process very, very quickly. You don't have to spend the amount of time that we spent on it explaining it, but it'll take a little practice. So I invite you to do just that. Your experiment for the week, if you're willing to take on the challenge, is to print off this worksheet that you can get in the show notes below and just keep it handy. The next time that you're experiencing a little fear, I want you to write down, or if you're not pen and paper, at least think through all of these different points of data about that particular fear and see if it helps you get to a resolution of, you know what, here's what I'm going to do with that information. It might just change your life.
Hey everyone, Meredith here, wife and CEO of Coach Jenny, back for round 2 of Ask the Coach Anything. All right, Coach Jenny, you know the drill. Here we go. Raina from DC is really curious. What book has influenced you the most?
Oh my God, I love this question. And of course, it depends on the day you ask me, but most of the time my answer is going to be Essentialism by Greg McKeown. If you have not read Essentialism, you need to. It's fantastic. So the concept of essentialism is doing less but better. And this whole idea of making sure that you're being really particular and discerning about where you're spending your time and energy and money and resources. Now, I will give you this. The book is kind of masculine in its examples, but if you can get past that, it's just amazing. And to say that this has most influenced me is not hyperbole. That idea of essentialism really spoke to my sense of minimalism, which is slightly different. You know, minimalism is about stuff, and essentialism is about everything else: time and effort and energy and attention. And attention is really the key. Like, where do I want to put my attention that feels essential? One of the things I love about this book is he talks about the paradox of essentialism and the idea that there's like this paradox of people who think like an essentialist and people who think like a non-essentialist. A non-essentialist does not spend any time or energy trying to discern what is or is not essential. So they don't spend any time or energy on that. Versus an essentialist, which is such a paradox, spends a great deal of time deciding whether or not this is worthy of my energy, which kind of connects to a lot of the things that I talk about in my coaching practice. So this idea of essentialism is so profound for me that when I first read this book, I was living in New York City and my wife and I were missing being on the beach. And so we went to the beach once, maybe twice a year on vacation. And then we were living in New York City, which is, I mean, I guess you could go to Rockaway, but anyway, we were not getting any of that wonderful beach time. And we thought, we're doing this backward. If we're really being essentialists, we want to live closer to it. So we should make a change. And over one brunch, we decided to move to Southern California. Now, of course, we've used that same essentialism mindset of like, okay, if it's essential that Meredith is leaving her job and education and working with me, how can we change our lifestyle, make radical changes just to make sure we're spending the majority of our time and energy on what matters most to us? So anyway, that's a long-winded answer. I love, love, love that book. Highly recommend it to anybody. And the audiobook is delightful because he's got that fabulous accent.
Next up, we have Shauna from Maryland. Shauna would like to know, what professional advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, Shauna. Love, love, love this question, my friend. This is really, really good. I have 3 different things that popped up to mind when you asked this. First up, I would push my younger self to go after and choose career paths and choose professional opportunities on things that matter to her earlier, instead of trying to get to things that felt impressive to others. You know, that dread in your stomach that you can get on a Sunday afternoon because you have another week where you have to go do that job. That was my life when I was in the fancy pants consulting role that I had worked so hard to get into. And I stayed a lot longer than I wanted to because I thought this was an impressive job. I was doing cool things. I was walking around the Pentagon. I was getting to rub elbows with all these cool people. And it was impressive, but it made me miserable. And I wasn't good at it because of that. That pit in your stomach of, I can't believe I have to go do this dreadful thing again, is not normal. And I would make sure that my younger self knew that from the get-go. Because even if you're making great money, Some money is too expensive to take. I would also tell her that she doesn't need to accept a salary or a coaching fee or a speaker's fee or any kind of money that is below the bar of resentment. She deserves to operate above what I call that bar of resentment. And of course, I would teach her about puddle jumping and how to break that habit as early as possible because, puddle jumping really sucked up a lot of my time and energy and wasted a ton of earned confidence in my 20s and 30s. And I wish I had all that time back now. I would really push her on the importance of giving herself credit. Great question. Thank you so much for asking it. I'm sure there's a lot more that my younger self needs to know, but I don't have a time machine.
Next up, we have Wallace, who's also from Maryland. And Wallace would like to know, who's your favorite Golden Girl and why?
Oh my gosh, Wallace, absolutely. Golden Girl, it's Sophia Petrillo, hands down, no question. For a few reasons. One, she just tells it like it is. She has absolutely no filters. Another reason is I feel like she is the greatest storyteller. The whole picture it, Sicily, 1930 something, is so really good. But the rest of her story is also really, really good. She tells a concise, pointed, beautiful story, and she just kills it. Then the other reason is Estelle Getty, the human. The actress herself had the least amount of experience of that entire cast and yet stole every scene that she was in, which is kind of mind-boggling when you look back at it. And that's not just because the writer set her up for that. She was that good. And of course, Estelle Getty, not just the actress, but the human, was one of the very early HIV/AIDS activists who was doing just amazing work before it was acceptable to do that kind of amazing work. Unfortunately, because she had had so many personal tragedies of losing people to HIV and AIDS, but she did some amazing work, and that snuck into the Golden Girls, which is why, if you don't know, I can quote the Golden Girls like no one's business. So thank you for asking me that question.
That wraps up another round of Ask Coach Jenny. So do you want to have your question featured? You totally know you do. Go ahead and leave us a comment below or DM on Instagram or Twitter at Coach Jenny, and we'll see you there.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Okay, so that is it for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode. If you liked it, share it with a friend, leave me a like and comment and subscribe and all of the YouTube-y things that you can do that really supports me and supports our new network. I would really appreciate that. And until next time, keep making things happen no matter what. So today, my puppy, Sadie, will not let me record. She would like to be my canine boa, as you can see. Sadie, I'm trying to work here. My name is Jenny Mustafa Julak, but everybody calls me Coach Jenny, and I will be your host for this episode. Host for this episode. Of course I will. I'm the host for all of the episodes. We're going to try that again.
After the garbage truck.
What the hell?
How many garbage trucks are there on this campground?
Felt like an earthquake.
Okay.
And you do this by practicing to collect proof, credit, giving. I'm trying to record here. I am. Why don't you care? Hello, YouTube. And see whether or not it might make a modicum of a difference. You're a mess. What did you get into? Look at you. You're all wet. May I get back to work now? And that doesn't mean that you need to change your thoughts and you're having negative thoughts and there's something wrong with you because you can't control over your thoughts. That was English. Teaching them how they can think through and analyze their fear analytically. That tracks.
It's still too
Hello,
I'm on a talk show. I am on a game show host.
tell them what they want, Meredith.
Behind door number 3. Okay.
I'm going to teach you the 7 steps. 7 steps, I promise. It's just 7 steps. I don't know what this is. Steps. What was that? That was the dumbest thing ever. May I get back to work now? Yeah. I have influence on how I persuade people to sign up and whether or not it reaches a what. I'm going to try that again because that was not English. Now, if we spent more time on this, there would be many, many more things that we could uncover. Many, many more ways that she would be able to. The last bucket is what? You with me?
Copy that, boss.
Don't call me boss.
Right on top of that, Rose.
You want to do it again?
Take 3. Third time is the charm, they say.